Well, life goes on. I want to thank all those viewers who made comments of condolences at the end of Mary's Alzheimer journey number 40. That was a tough series. Well, let's get going with episode number 10. Life goes on. Won't be the same, but it goes on. Now I realize that you're used to me replying to your comments, but I didn't reply to the condolences. However, I read every single one. It was overwhelming. Thank you again. You may recall that I was sort of complaining about the fact that the point of the live center wasn't fitting properly into the end of this new mandrel here, and I've actually enlarged it with a centering bit here, and notice here the way it was actually starting to wear on the point. In other words, there was very little metal actually supporting this to keep it from chattering. So now it goes in considerably farther. There's a lot more bearing surface, if you know what I mean. Anyway, thought you might be interested. You may recall that when I did that box opening video the other day, I received a free sample of Red Heart. Now I'm wondering, if I use the buffing system, am I going to lose some of the bright red color? In other words, will the CA finish retain the bright red color? Now the same would probably go for Purple Heart or Yellow Heart, both of which I've used before. Once again, this is not about the pen kit. This is about the blanks and the wood and what kind of finish can we get doing it different ways. I'm going to be using the Glacia kit again, and because I have extra brass tubes, it'll be quite easy to turn an extra blank. And once again, I'm not going to waste a bunch of time here videoing all the steps right up until we get to the place where we can do the buffing or the CA finish. So let's go and get it over with. Now this one here is taken down a little closer to the bushings than this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the CA glue on this one, and this one here I'll use the buffer, so that if the buffer happens to take off any more wood, well, it's not going to, probably be a good thing. Whereas this one is, well, this end is already at the bushings. So I think you know what I'm talking about here. Now the shavings, when I was drilling out for the brass tubes, is consistent red all the way through. Thought you might like to see that. But there was no change in color as I was drilling through. It just kept pouring out the top of the blank, just the way you see it here. Before I get going here, one of the viewers had asked, why do I have the paper towel on top of the plastic? Well, I find that if I take a paper towel and then I fold it over and then fold it over again, well, you end up with 4 layers of paper towel. And even with 4 layers, sometimes it will soak right through and get on my finger. Whereas this way, you just use 1 layer, and that's enough, and it won't get through onto your finger if you're careful. And you waste a lot less CA glue because you don't have all that extra absorption. And another thing that I'm going to be doing different is, never tried this before, but I'm thinking, well, you know how sometimes the CA will run down here and then eventually it gets down here and you grab hold of the bottle and you go to let go of it and you can't. I've actually had that happen more than once. So this is something new. I've never tried this before. I think what probably is going to happen is, though, it's going to run down into the paper towel. Paper towel is going to, glue itself right to the nozzle here. But, well, we'll see what happens. This may be the last time I actually try this. Most of the noise you hear going on here is the room air cleaner. I got it going to help get the fumes away from my face. The lathe is only turning at about 300 RPM. Now this first coat, I'm putting it on a little bit heavier than I plan to do the others. I think that if it can soak in really good before it actually cures, it'll sort of be like, oh, poor man's cactus juice process. This is the last of 16 applications altogether. The previous 14, I did exactly the same way. Oh, and one more thing I should mention, I did not use the curing agent. I'm going to see if I can get rid of these little radial ridges that are formed here. And I think if I'm very, very careful and don't get too aggressive with my coarser grits, I'm not going to go right through to the wood like I did a couple of times ago. Especially on the ends. That's where I seem to have had a problem. So anyway, let's see what happens here. Now I don't know if I've got enough tape here, but I can always add more. Yeah, that might wedge in. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, that's not going to come out. Now, there's something I want to mention here. The other day, when I first got this thing, I was checking on YouTube to see how other people were doing it, and I was watching a guy, and pretty sure this thing was turning towards him, and he was going like this. And it was working out okay. But what I can envision happening is, it could dig in, flip out of your hands, and the next thing you hear me say is, well, tomorrow we press. So I think you get the idea. So I'm going to do it from underneath. Even though I realize you can actually see it a lot better when it's up here like this. Thing is, I'm not used to this yet, so once I get used to it, maybe I'll be doing it like this too. Well, the CA finish on the right there is definitely more glossy, no question about it. However, I like the looks of the buffed better and the feel of the buffed better. So that's the one I'm going to use with this kit here. I am going to put the CA back on the lathe and lightly sand it down again, and then maybe just put one or two coats of CA over top and see if I can't maybe just improve on this. It's a little bit uneven or dimpled. Yeah, I think possibly I can improve on that. We'll see. I'm turning at about 450 RPM here. This is a piece of 800 grit, and I'm just going to do it very lightly. Yeah, I don't want to go right through to the wood, although I realize there is a chance of that. I'm not going to bother with the air cleaner. Anyway, we'll just try and, well, like I say, very careful. Well, offhand I would say I got rid of all the little bumps. Let's just have a look here. I can see some places there where the low parts of the valleys, I guess you call it, where the CA glue didn't get touched by the sandpaper, but I think it's going to be okay. Well, we'll soon know. Well, I've said this before, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. At least I think I'm ahead. It is really obvious, at least it's obvious to me, that the CA finish preserved the bright red color better than the buffed. However, I like the buffed better, and I don't know why, I just do. The other day I was talking about trying a lapping compound. Well, I couldn't find what I wanted, but I got grinding compound that you use for grinding valves. And I'm afraid it's going to be a little bit on the coarse side, and it could be that the grease that it's suspended in is going to sort of have a reaction with the acrylic, but I won't know unless I actually try it. But that's got to be in the next episode. This episode's pretty long already. Okay, this is not from these pens. This is from previous pens.